Hey everybody, I'm David with Bolivar Live, and once again I'm here with Beth Appleby. In today's show, we're talking real estate, but I'm going to give some opinions.
This will be fun.
Because I can give my opinion in areas that you might not be able to give your opinion, but we all know what the housing market's like down here, and you and I have been talking about how many houses are there and why we have so many houses. And you know, I don't think it's the economy is the reason why we have the houses. I think people bought them on impulse.
A lot of people did.
During the pandemic, they listened to some short-term rental shows that really didn't know our market down here. Not that I know it, but probably better than someone in Colorado or somewhere talking about it. But now they figured out they need to sell a home, and it's the economy a little bit. Interest rates have gone up. But one thing you and I have talked about is people aren't making offers.
No, they're not.
And you had a deal a couple weeks ago where a family figured out what they wanted. And I'm going to stop for a second from that and say there's more ways to save money than just
the
off
offer price.
The
Right.
offer price. And
Right.
that's where this show's going. And I didn't really think about it until you explained it to me. I knew you could do other things, but I didn't think about it
Well, no,
as
because we
a
said
whole
so
ball
as a
of
buyer,
wax.
because I was a buyer this year.
Right.
So, and I was a buyer. I bought down here just 2 years ago, which has been great for my job because it gave me a new perspective. Because as a realtor, you see things a different way, very different. As a buyer, you're like, okay, well, I'm only going to spend this much. Like, this is my cap. I'm not going to go past this money, and I only have this much to put down, and I only want my interest rate to be this much. And you get these ideas in your head, and you kind of get married to those ideas. So
You've got blinders on.
You absolutely have blinders on.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you have a partner who's with you who has their own blinders, and so then the two of you are like, oh, he's going, no, we can't spend more than this, and I'm like, well, we can spend more than this, but we'll make sure our interest rate is it makes you stuck. You get stuck in a rut. So as an agent, my job is to say, wait a minute.
Let's look at the
Let's
big
look
picture.
at the big. There's a whole in that contract, that offer. There are so many lines that you have to fill in.
Right.
That all have a dollar amount associated with it. But before you even get to that, let's talk about closing costs, interest rates, different things that you need, insurance, surveys. All of these things can be negotiated. I kind of work things backwards as an agent, and this is what I like to do. When you call me, you're the buyer, and you call me and go, Beth, I want to buy a house at the beach. Fantastic. First thing I'm going to say is, have you talked to a lender? How are you paying for this house? Is it going to be a cash deal? That's a whole different conversation. Because
yeah, all right.
Where's the cash? I love when you say that. But where's that money coming from, right? Because if you say it's a cash deal, but you have it tied up in investments, now we got to call your investment broker and find out what is it going to take to get that money out.
Right.
And now I'm going to tell you to call your tax guy and say,
what's this going to do?
What's it going to cost you to take that
Right.
money out? Because we get our little statements every month. We go, oh, look, we have all this money that's been stashed somewhere. I don't know where, stashed in investments. You think that that's your cash. It might not actually be in your best interest to do that. So then we have my lenders, right? So we call our lender. So I want to make sure we have all that figured out before we even go unlock the door and look at the house. Let's figure out from the get-go, what do we have to play with?
Right.
And what are these outside costs that maybe we don't think about to the last minute? And is it going to work? Interest rates are it's a hot topic right now. Everyone's upset. They're waiting for this magic drop in interest rates.
But there's ways you can get your interest rate.
You can buy your interest rate down.
You can get your interest rate down.
Yes, you can.
And that can be figured
into the
offer. And
absolutely, under something called concessions.
I can tell you, this is going to be a two-part show.
Well, we're going to bring my favorite lender in.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but that's the biggest thing is...
These are all things we need to know before we even look at I'm looking at this $750,000 house and I don't want to pay $750,000 for it.
Well, my opinion is it really worth $750,000? And
well, I'm going to tell you that.
And you do the market analysis,
and
it may be worth $700,000, or it may be worth $700,000.
It might be worth
$800,000, but that's where your realtor comes in from the get-go. Narrow. You may start out with 10 or 15 houses, and then narrow it down. You know, and you've made this comment. Look at how old's the roof? How long has it been since it's been painted? What kind of shape is it in? Any maintenance? Age of the AC. And you can take all this information and narrow it down to maybe 5 or 6 houses that you actually go look at that are in pretty close to the price point. But even if it's not close to the price point, because we've seen some houses down here drop 50, 75, 100. I think one last week dropped 100,000.
Yes, it did.
And a lot of that is because, and this is my opinion, they were bought way too much during the pandemic. We saw homes, in my opinion, going for $100, $125 a square foot more than it should have. And so they've got it priced at that, or they've got sentimental. There's a lot of sentimental homes down here that it's been in the family, or the property's been in the family for 30 and 40 years. And so they really...
And the other thing is you have two different values, perspectives going on.
Right.
So you have an investor who's listing his house and saying, this house is worth this much because I've made this much money off of it. Okay. But if the person buying your house isn't going to be an investor, they might not see that same dollar amount associated with it. So that's a little bit different too. It kind of changes things down here, where you might not have in a neighborhood like in Houston or Dallas, the Woodlands. This is a neighbor house. Every house in the neighborhood's about the same.
Right.
The only thing that's going to change is how the finishes are.
Right.
Right. But here we have properties that have been really productive money-making properties. And so they're attaching that to what they perceive is what the house is worth.
But you have to look at when they were productive.
Yes.
Because productive homes now are productive homes. But if you go back 4 years or look at the last 3 years, you're catching in on the end of that.
The whole pandemic.
The whole pandemic, when you couldn't find a house down here.
And they were here for.
And so, I think that's what got some people in trouble, or why they paid more. Not really trouble, but they paid more, is because at the end of the pandemic, houses made it to MLS for 10 or 24 hours and they were gone.
They
were buying them sight unseen. And if you look back at the rental history over the last 2.5, 3 years, hell, they were rented every day they could be rented, just about, because the beach was open, people wanted to get down here.
Well, they were working from home.
And they were working from home, and I saw kids having classes, and I met a couple families that actually owned homes down here already. And they'd go to the beach and they did their gym time on the beach, and might do biology or something on the beach, or science on the beach. And so I met some families that did that. But now we're off that. We're back
in the office.
Back in the office. A lot of homes down here that are on the market, a lot of rental homes, because people decided, well, we're going back to the office. We'll rent the home to try and offset the cost a little bit because we like it down there. But the rentals aren't the same. And so if you're looking at it as investment, go back and look at what the last year and a half is maybe. Don't look and let them tell you, oh, well, this house rented 275 or 300 days.
Right.
Because I can tell you, I'll look them in the eye and say, bullshit. Because it's not like that down here now.
Well, you should be able to get like a profit and loss statement.
Right.
If you're looking at it from an investment perspective.
Right.
And kind of use that to help.
But a lot of people, we saw it during the pandemic, they didn't listen, I think, is my opinion.
I wasn't here during the pandemic.
You weren't here during the pandemic.
So I can't speak to that. I wish I was here.
But I can also defend the realtors too down here, because people are going to say, oh, well, it's the realtor's fault. No, it's not the realtor's fault, because you probably asked your realtor what it was worth. And if they told you, well, if you want this house, you have to pay this, but this is what the realtor, this is what it's worth, or if they did the market analysis, that
Right.
answered the question right there. And if you bought it off the market analysis, it was at that time probably.
Right.
Am I thinking right, or am I thinking
well,
backwards?
okay, so when you say market analysis, what happens is that we're pulling houses that have most recently sold
Right.
that match the same criteria of the house that
Right.
you're looking at, okay?
Right.
So those sold prices could have been elevated.
Elevated.
Right?
Because everything
Because
else
everything was
down
elevated.
here.
So in reality, then that house, those numbers matched.
Okay.
So you couldn't necessarily say, oh, well, you're overpaying because
The market
the
analysis.
market is showing you those
Let
houses.
me ask you
are
this.
there.
Did you really have to do, and you weren't down here then, so you probably can't answer this. Did realtors really have to do a market analysis back then? Because, I mean,
Because if you wanted a house, you needed to pay whatever you could. I still did.
Yeah.
I did market analysis. Like, so
In
I don't know if you
Dallas.
heard. Oh, yeah, because in Dallas, we literally were standing in line to get into the house.
Really?
Just to see it. And at the time, I had a young couple looking for a house. And so we would divide and conquer. I would make the appointment for these different houses.
Uh-huh.
The wife would go stand in line at one. You literally stood in line. They
see
would
the
stand
house.
in line to get into the house. She would be at this house. I would be at this house. The husband would be 3 blocks over at that house. And we would text each other back and forth.
Who's getting in
Whoever's
first?
getting in. Yeah. No. And then we would write offers on all
of
those
them
houses.
to see which one you could
and just
get.
whatever one they got. And so when your offer is one of 30, you're going to throw, if they really want that house, you're going
But
to,
a lot of
they were
people
throwing whatever they could at it.
Didn't
Whether it
even
was,
see the house, other than pictures.
oh no, a lot of people didn't see houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's get back to what the
let's
show's
get back
about.
to
Making offers and ways you can
So
save
it's
now.
a different market now.
Right.
We are not there anymore. We are not standing in line. We are not throwing everything, the kitchen sink, our 6 kids, and the puppy dog to make the offer work.
Right.
We're not doing that.
It's a buyer's market
It's a
now.
buyer's market. And so what does that mean? That means the buyer gets to come in and say, hey, this is what I'm going to offer you. This is what I want you to take care of.
Uh-huh.
I'm asking you to pay down my interest rate. I'm asking you to pay my closing costs. I'm asking you to pay for my survey, whatever. We're going
Right.
to put it all together. Whatever makes sense so that that buyer can get into that house. Then it's up to the seller and the listing agent to
Right.
say, this
I
is
can
what
do
you're going to
this.
walk away. If we do all of this, this is what you're going to walk away with.
Hold on one second. We'll be right back. Well, like I said, we cut it short. This is going to be a 2-part series. This is just to let you know we'll be back next week on Monday at 7 p.m. with a follow-up. Until next time, God bless and bye-bye. Video equipment is sponsored by Crystal Beach Decor and More, located at 1959 Highway 87 in Crystal Beach, Texas, and Beachy Beatnik Boutique and Jewelry, located at 970 Surfside and Highway 87 in Crystal Beach, Texas. Thank you to these 2 businesses for being our 2025 video equipment sponsor for Bolivar Live.